What if the most feared man in New York City, a man who made crime, families vanish and made federal agents lose sleep, walked into his own kitchen one morning and saw something that didn't just stop him cold. It tore open something he had spent 13 years sealing shut. Not an enemy, not a threat, a woman, his childhood best friend, standing in his mansion in a gray maid's uniform, 8 months pregnant. With bruises on her wrists, she was desperately trying to hide behind her sleeves. And the moment their eyes met across that kitchen, 17 years of silence and guilt collapsed into 6 feet of floor between them. And nothing was ever the same again. This is not a story about a powerful man rescuing a helpless woman. This is the story of a man who thought he had burned every soft thing inside himself, discovering in one single morning that one thing survived. The one thing that had always mattered most. Stay, because this one will rearrange something inside you before it's done. Nathan Cole didn't have a reputation in New York. He was the reputation. At 33, he controlled 3 major ports, 9 front businesses, and more political relationships than anyone dared count publicly. 6'2", always in black, with eyes that made grown men look away first. He never raised his voice, hadn't in 11 years, because he had learned early that the most terrifying thing a powerful man can do is stay completely calm while the world around him catches fire. His men said Nathan Cole silent was more dangerous than any man alive screaming. He had built this empire from the rubble of his father's murder at 15, poor years of watching and waiting and memorizing, and then at 19, executed a takeover so clean and so total it became legend. He had not celebrated. He had gone back to work. He had been working ever since, with the focused, consuming intensity of a man who replaced every human need with one organizing principle: control everything, trust no one, feel nothing. Sarah Bennett had once been the reason Nathan Cole knew how to laugh. They grew up 4 houses apart in Queens, best friends from age 7, inseparable and loud and completely certain of each other until the night everything shattered. Nathan's father was murdered when Nathan was 15. His family disappeared within a month, relocated for safety, no real goodbye, just an empty house and a car, pulling away, and 17 years of silence that followed like a shadow. Sarah had tried to find him twice afterward. Both times the trail went cold. Life moved forward the way it always does, and not kindly, not carefully, just relentlessly forward. She survived it. She worked. She endured her mother's illness, the lost scholarship, the 60-hour weeks, and then she made the one mistake that cost her more than everything else combined. His name was Ryan Foster. Ryan was 36, a commercial real estate broker, charming in the specific way that skilled predators are. Charming, perfectly calibrated, endlessly patient, fluent in exactly what each particular lonely person most needed to hear. He met Sarah at her most exhausted and isolated, and he arrived with the timing and precision of someone who had done this before. The first year felt almost real. The second year was where the architecture began showing cracks, so gradually, so expertly that she couldn't name the moment it started. Her money moved to a joint account. Her friendships became problems. Her opinions became arguments. The first time he hit her, he cried for an hour and swore it would never happen again. It happened again. And by then she was pregnant, financially trapped, living in his apartment, and the exit that looks obvious from outside becomes, from inside, a maze with no visible walls and no clear door. She found the job posting online, Upper East Side mansion, live-in housekeeping, competitive pay. She didn't ask whose house it was. She needed out. She took it. She found out whose house it was when she walked into the entrance hallway and saw a photograph mounted on the wall. Recent, formal, the kind taken at a public event, and the face in it reached across 17 years and grabbed her by the throat. Her bags hit the marble floor. Her heart did something violent and complicated. She stood completely still for 30 full seconds, staring at a face she had last seen through a car window when she was 17 years old. Then she picked up her bags, straightened her spine, and walked deeper into the house. She needed this job. She needed the safety and the income and the distance from Ryan's apartment. Whatever else was true, and a great deal else was very complicated and true. She needed this job. She would deal with everything else when she absolutely had to. Nathan came downstairs at 6:15, Tuesday morning because he hadn't slept and had stopped pretending he might. He wanted coffee and 10 minutes of silence before the day began its assault. The kitchen was supposed to be empty at 6:15. Standing at the counter, with her back to him, was a woman, moving the careful, deliberate way that heavily pregnant people move, compensating, protecting, redistributing weight with every step. Her hair was auburn, a specific, particular shade of auburn he had not seen on another person in 17 years. His body stopped before his mind caught up. 3 inches of her left sleeve had ridden up from reaching across the counter. On the inside of her wrist was a bruise, deep-colored, deliberate-shaped, the kind that has a specific story behind it, involving another person's hand, and force and intent. Nathan's eyes locked on it, and every other function in his body went completely still. He said her name. Just Sarah, in a voice that came from somewhere beneath every professional layer he had built, lower and rougher than anything he'd used in years. The kind of voice that bypasses all performance and arrives straight from whatever is still living underneath. She turned. The color left her face so completely and so instantly. She looked like a photograph of herself. They stared at each other. Across 6 feet of kitchen and 17 years of everything unsaid, her hand moved immediately to her sleeve, pulling it down. A small, automatic, practiced act of hiding. That single gesture hit Nathan somewhere, so deep and so specific that he felt it simultaneously, in his jaw, his hands, and the center of his chest. He crossed the kitchen in 4 steps. She had nowhere to go. Counter behind her. Him in front. He stopped 2 feet away and looked at her face the way he looked at everything that mattered, completely, without flinching, cataloging every detail with the precision that had kept him alive for 13 years. The faded bruise near her left eye, the healing cut at the corner of her mouth, the rigid, careful posture of someone who had learned that making herself small was a form of protection. He remembered a girl in Queens who argued with adults and corrected teachers, and filled every room she entered simply by existing in it, loudly, certainly without apology, watching her stand against his kitchen counter, trying to be invisible, trying to be small enough that nothing bad would happen. Nathan felt something move through him that had no clean name. It was rage and grief and guilt compressed into a single feeling, so large it had no edges. He asked quietly, the voice his men feared most, "Who did this to you?" She cycled through 6 expressions in 3 seconds and landed on careful blankness. "I'm the new housekeeping staff. I apologize for Sarah." 1 word. It stopped her mid-sentence the way a hand on a shoulder stops a person. Something moved across her face. A ghost of old defiance, barely visible but real. She said, "You've been a stranger for 17 years." It landed the way truth lands when it's been waiting years to be said, with a weight that changed the air permanently. He absorbed it. He deserved every syllable of it. He pulled out a chair. "Sit down," she started to object. He said, "Please." That single word, "please," from Nathan Cole's mouth apparently landed so unexpectedly that it stopped her argument before it began. She sat. He made the coffee himself. Neither of them mentioned this. They sat across from each other at 6:20 in the morning while November light came through the tall windows, and she told him about Ryan, not cleanly, not in order, but in fragments the way trauma always gets told, sideways, without looking directly at the worst parts, the charm, the timing. The first year that felt almost real. The second year of slow expert dismantling. The financial trap. The pregnancy. The long sleeves in August. The exit that took 8 months to find. He listened without moving, without interrupting, with the absolute focused stillness of a man storing every word precisely. When she finished, he picked up his phone and made 1 call. His right-hand man, James, answered on the second ring. Nathan said 4 words. Everything on Ryan Foster. Then he set the phone down and said to Sarah, "Finish your coffee." By noon, James had a file, and it was not a thin one. 2 prior restraining orders, both withdrawn after financial settlements. A civil lawsuit sealed. A documented pattern across 4 states in 6 years that had never been successfully prosecuted because Ryan Foster was expert at 2 specific things: selecting vulnerable targets and making legal consequences disappear before they could stick. James delivered this standing in Nathan's office. Nathan sat completely still through the entire briefing. Left hand flat on the desk. Hadn't moved in 7 minutes. James had worked beside him for 9 years and had privately cataloged his silences into categories. This one ranked in the top 2 most dangerous. Someone's life was about to be permanently and structurally altered. James knew better than to ask which direction. He waited for instructions. Nathan said simply, "Start with his income sources. Every contract, every pipeline." James nodded and left. Nathan moved Sarah into the East guest suite that same afternoon. Her own room, her own bathroom, a lock she controlled from the inside. He called his private physician. He suspended her housekeeping duties permanently and immediately. Sarah objected, and not loudly. She had lost some of that volume, but consistently and with a directness that was the first genuinely Sarah-like thing he had seen from her since the kitchen. She stood in the doorway and said, "I don't want to owe you." He looked at her from the hallway, and something old and direct surfaced briefly in his voice, beneath the usual controlled layers. "You don't owe me anything. I owe you. I disappeared and I didn't come back and you needed." He stopped, reset. "The room is yours. Every decision is yours. That's not going to change." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped back into the room. Her own kind of answer. She turned before he left. "The baby's a girl." He stopped walking, stood with his back to her for 2 full seconds, then nodded once, single, precise, and continued down the hallway. She didn't see his face. He was not ready for anyone to see his face. That night, Ryan called her cell at 11, not to talk, to remind her he could find her anywhere. She didn't answer. She sat on the bed watching the phone light up and go dark, with her hands perfectly still in her lap. Security footage reached Nathan's phone by 11:18. He reviewed it once, set the phone down, went upstairs. 3 knocks, not urgent, recognizably safe. He pulled the chair from the corner desk and sat across the room. Distance that gave her space. Control that stayed hers. "Tell me everything about his routines." She studied him. Then she started talking. Now came the thing that changed everything. Not just for Nathan and Sarah, but for the 18 years that had come before them. While James was building the case against Ryan Foster, he pulled financial records that had nothing to do with Ryan at all. Old records. Port records from 18 years ago, connected to the original investigation, into the accident that killed Nathan's father. The official story had always been a drunk driver, a rainy night, a curve, case closed. But a thread appeared in the documents that shouldn't have been there, and James, who pulled threads for a living, pulled it. What came loose on the other end was a name. Gerald Marsh, 70 years old, real estate developer, respected, philanthropic. A man who 18 years ago had wanted Nathan's father's port, connections badly enough to pay someone to remove the obstacle permanently. He had arranged it, paid for it, watched it happen, and then lived 70 comfortable years of complete untouched consequence while a 15-year-old boy rebuilt a life from the wreckage. James told Nathan on a Thursday afternoon. He delivered it the way he delivered everything important. Standing, precise, direct, no softening. He put the documentation on the desk and spoke for 4 minutes, and then stopped and waited. Nathan did not move. He did not speak. He sat with both hands flat on the desk and his eyes on the middle distance, and the silence in the office became a living thing, and heavy and pressurized and growing. James had cataloged Nathan's silences for 9 years. He had never encountered this one before. This was not the dangerous quiet of a man deciding what consequence to deliver. This was something older and deeper, a man absorbing a rewrite of 18 years, of his own history, everything Nathan had believed about his father's death, the randomness of it, the senselessness, the grief with no address, and had just been given an address. And the address had a name, and the name had a face. And that face was, currently appearing in charity gala, photographs with a smile, that had never once paid for what it owed. Nathan sat alone in his office for 4 hours after James left, completely still. The grief that moved through him during those 4 hours was unlike anything he had managed in his adult life, because he had spent 18 years grieving a random tragedy, which is one specific kind of grief. And now that grief had been replaced, without warning, by something entirely different. He had not lost his father to a drunk driver and a rainy night. He had lost his father to a decision made by a man in an office who had weighed a human life against a business advantage and chosen the advantage. 18 years of guilt for not being there. 18 years of purposeless rage with nothing solid to land on. All of it suddenly had the correct shape, and the correct address, and the unbearable clarity of something that had been waiting the whole time to be understood. He did not cry. He sat completely still for 4 hours, and when he stood up again, something had shifted in him permanently. Colder, more focused, and entirely certain of what came next. He told Sarah that evening in the library. He sat across from her and said it directly. He had found out who killed his father and how and why, and the name of the man who was still living comfortably 18 years later. She went completely still. She listened without interrupting, with those steady green eyes fully present, no performance, no managed reaction, the way she had always listened, like the thing being said was the only thing in the world for the duration of its saying. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What are you going to do?" He looked at her. Something legal. Something permanent. Something he cannot write a check to make disappear. She studied him. The specific, careful study of a person who needed to know the answer was true before she accepted it. Then she reached across the table and put her hand over his. Just briefly, just once. He looked at their hands. He did not say anything. Neither did she. Neither needed to. Gerald Marsh's world began coming apart on a Wednesday morning, and the process was legal, meticulous, and devastating, in the way that only things with excellent documentation behind them can be. Financial investigators and connected to Nathan, through 3 legitimate business layers, began formally reviewing Marsh's company records under the framework of a civil inquiry. Tied to the original accident case, documents buried for 18 years surfaced, when the right people knew precisely where to look. 2 former employees who had been paid for silence and had never stopped feeling the weight of it agreed to speak when approached by attorneys who were clearly resourced and clearly not going away. Marsh's foundation began receiving questions from major donors. His board requested an emergency meeting. His lawyers started billing at crisis rates. He was 70 years old, and for the first time in 18 comfortable years, Consequence had found his correct address and knocked on the door. Ryan Foster's collapse ran parallel and was equally complete. 4 major clients withdrew quietly after being connected through entirely legal channels to documented information about his history. His primary financing contact requested an in-person meeting, the kind of meeting that ends relationships. His office lease was not renewed. 2 women who had previously withdrawn restraining orders under financial pressure now had legal representation that did not disappear when Ryan reached for his checkbook, because Nathan had connected them with 3 of the best family law attorneys in the city, attorneys who had access to complete documentation and zero incentive to settle cheaply. Nathan told Sarah all of this across 3 evenings, piece by piece, nothing hidden. She listened each time and asked precise questions, and at the end of the 3rd evening said quietly, "You did all of this," he said. "I did what was mine to handle. Every decision that was yours stayed yours." She looked at him for a long moment. "I believe you," she said. It was the first time she had said those words to him directly. They both understood the weight of them. Sarah went into labor 3 weeks early on a Thursday evening while Nathan was in his office. James knocked once. "It's time. She's asking for you." Nathan was out of his chair before the sentence finished. He did not walk. The ground floor room his staff had quietly prepared 2 weeks earlier, because James had correctly inferred without being told that it should be prepared and was ready. Dr. Ngozi arrived in 19 minutes. Nathan sat outside that room on the floor, and not a chair, the actual floor, and for 4 hours and 23 minutes while sounds came from inside that removed, completely and permanently, every professional controlled layer he had spent 13 years constructing. His entire security team moved around him with careful invisibility. James came at hour 2 and stood in the hallway without speaking, and then left, because there was nothing useful to say, and he knew it. Nathan sat on the floor of his own mansion and felt, for the first time in 18 years, completely and entirely helpless. It was the most human he had felt since he was 15. The door opened at 11:51. Nathan stood. He stood in the doorway and heard, before he saw, anything to sound so small and so enormous simultaneously, that it hit somewhere deeper than thought. Dr. Ngozi stepped aside. Sarah was in the bed with the specific total exhaustion of someone who has just done something monumental, and in her arms was a person, approximately 30 minutes old, who had clearly already formed opinions about the world and was making them loudly known. Sarah looked up from the bed and her eyes were wet and bright and more simply, completely, undefendedly happy than anything Nathan had witnessed in his entire adult life. She said, "She's here. We're both okay." He walked in and sat in the chair beside the bed and looked at the baby and did not speak for a long time. There was nothing adequate. He simply looked, and something in his chest, something that had been sealed and defended and armored for 18 years, opened quietly and completely and did not close again. They named her Lily. She had Sarah's coloring and what appeared within the first 2 weeks to be Sarah's personality, in its most concentrated and unfiltered form, opinionated, alert, deeply unimpressed by anyone's authority or reputation. She grabbed Nathan's index finger on day 11 and held it with the absolute, boneless trust that only very new people possess, complete, weightless, no conditions attached. Nathan, who had not been uncertain about anything in 13 years, was genuinely uncertain about how to hold someone that small. He learned. He restructured his schedule to be home by 5 without telling anyone he was doing it. James noticed and said nothing because James understood which observations to keep private. The security team noticed and exchanged looks that were professionally invisible. The household staff noticed and quietly ensured there was always something warm ready in the kitchen at 5 o'clock. Nobody needed to be told. Some changes announce themselves in the atmosphere long before anyone speaks them aloud. On a Saturday morning in May, 6 months after a Tuesday that rearranged everything, Nathan Cole was sitting on the living room floor with Lily on a playmat, between him and Sarah doing something his entire criminal network would have found completely unrecognizable and making faces. Lily found this extraordinary and was laughing with the total, full-body commitment, the baby's laugh with zero reservation, complete surrender to the moment. Sarah was watching, him with the expression he had, privately catalogued as his favorite thing in the world, warm, unguarded, entirely certain. She said, "I need to say something." He looked at her. She said, "I don't have a clean word for what this is between us, but I know it's real and I know it's mine, and I know it's the best thing in my life and next to her." He looked at her across Lily and said, "I've been waiting for you to say that." She blinked. "How long?" He said, "Since we were 15. I just didn't know that's what waiting felt like." She laughed. The real one, while not the careful, recovering version she'd been gradually finding her way back to for months, but the actual original laugh, the one he remembered, from 100 afternoons in a neighborhood that existed now only in the memory of two people who had both spent 17 years quietly carrying it, loud, undefended, completely itself, filling the room the way it used to fill a Queen Street, like it had every right to be there and had always known it. Lily, entirely approving, laughed back with her whole body. Nathan looked at the two of them and felt something complete in his chest, not the closing of something, but the opening, a door swinging the right direction for the first time in 18 years. He had spent half his life building walls. It had taken one auburn-haired woman, a 9-week-old with opinions, and a Tuesday morning in November to walk through every single one of them. He reached over and took Sarah's hand. She looked at him. He said, "Stay." She smiled. The full one, the one that took up her whole face. "I already am." She didn't ask him to save her. She just needed someone in her corner, and this time he stayed.